out and writing them down. Are just gonna use them. Well, you have them sign in too, so I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, Bob.
Mark, Jacob, and Jackson Radio are on the Zoom, and then somebody named Tammy. Or they're under Tammy.
Jacob?
Yeah.
The person who signed in is Tammy. Can you identify yourself, please?
I was trying to.
Tammy Jacob.
Oh, Tammy Jacob. Okay.
Oh, so Tammy Amber.
Correct. Thank you.
Just that one. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Just so you have
Ready? All right. We're going to call the meeting to order. We're going to call this meeting to order. Thank you. We'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance.
This meeting is being recorded.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And happy Flag Day. Okay. All right. So, I would like to start out with looking for a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from May 24th. Cindy Rumsey. Second, Rebecca. Any comments, questions, or corrections? Well, yes, I do have a correction. Rich Swift is drag president and Paul Allen is vice president. So that needs to be corrected in the minutes. It had Paul Allen listed as president.
That's because Mark had named him as, he had said his name.
Yeah, that's what I was told.
Okay, so if we can correct that.
Okay.
Yep. Well, it is, you can put it in, correct it or whatever from, okay. All right, so any other comments or questions to the May 24th meeting minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. All right, motion carries to accept the minutes. All right, at this point, we will open it up to public comment. Okay. Conserving water was that there was an issue with the well pump over the weekend that has since been corrected.
Okay, I saw it all, a couple weeks ago, water department flying by and stuff like that. I just didn't know what it was, and I really couldn't find any information out there from the village or on the internet.
Yeah, it happened on a Saturday morning, kind of out of the blue, and we tried to get it up on the website. We were unable to do it, and by the time we were able to get it up, the conserved water was done.
And from what I understand, back in the days, that well was never supposed to run out. It's like, what's going on?
It's
That's
the pump.
what causes concern.
Yeah,
So,
no.
and they said, I know supply of water, which whatever, but these two happen, so that's
Yeah.
what's happening.
Correct. Right. So in the future, usually we can find it on the website, and that's what we plan to do going forward. Besides posting it in places where people will see it. Yep. You're welcome. Anybody else with public comment? Yes, but it was an emergency situation, so I doubt whether they would answer all the phone calls because, as you know, you have to involve Department of Health and all those other things. Yes. So that was a one-off. Otherwise, it does get posted. Okay. Any other public comments? Okay. So we'll close the public comment, and we will go to the wastewater and water report. Ed Charpeau is unable to join us this evening due to conflict, so he provided a copy of his report. So just to highlight, the monthly report was sent out. The first round of PFOA samples has also been sent out, and we're awaiting the results. As far as the operations within the water department, the well-controlled building has had some issues, and at this time, they are awaiting parts for the emergency repair. They're going to be upgrading pump number 2, as that has not had any upgrades to it, and pump number 1 is fully functional at this time. We've also checked for chlorine and phosphate throughout the village. Fire hydrants were flushed and are working order. Should be of note that the fire hydrant that had been out of working order on Brooks Avenue and Route 30 has been placed back in service. So all of our hydrants are functioning. So the areas that have been dug up due to repairs or water main breaks have been seeded and cleaned. So that should be in good order. The service at 2826 Route 8 was damaged and repaired by Eldridge. 107 Chalet Drive had a leak and was found that their water meter base plate was an issue, so that's been replaced with a new meter. We replaced the stand and rod at King of the Frosties prior to Charlie King paving that area. Camp of the Wood meters have all been read, and there are no issues to report at this time over there. And most seasonal meters have been installed within the village as of this date. Expenditures included the labs, Stevenson's, Ferguson's, Waterworks, Charlie John's, and Gore Electric. Schooling, Ed has finished his course and has submitted the paperwork for water recertification, and we should hear that in a few weeks. Things to do, there's one more fire hydrant to be dug up and repaired near the motel, and they'll be doing that in the upcoming week to determine what is needed, so that'll be next week. The parts are ordered and they're scheduling the repair, and the fire hydrants will be painted. Any questions on water? Okay. Wastewater, Speedies and DMR have been completed for April. Wastewater plant has had its annual inspection and they got very good passing grade. They did comment that they were happy to see the upgrades in the wastewater treatment, which was great. The land application site has been mowed and limed, and once the lime has had time to adjust to the appropriate pH, they'll sample the soil and biosolids and prepare for application. The outside plant has been pumped down and they're preparing for its use prior to the July 4th weekend if needed, depending on how many folks are in town. Pump station 1 has been painted and repaired. They repaired the cover for the carbon filter. The sewer on Oak Lateral on Oak Mountain Drive has been found and marked. This is for a property that's being built at the top of Oak Mountain Drive near the Smiths. Pump station 2 has had an issue since June 6th for a high-level alarm. Both pumps have been tripped. The heaters were reset and adjusted appropriately to reduce this recurring again. So that should be a finished situation. The blowers at the wastewater plant have been serviced, are in good working order. And then this time we've been told to continue operating as we have. We attempted to fix the pump at pump station number 5. However, the gasket failed. An O-ring has been ordered for that repair, although it's still operational. Again, expenditures at Charlie John, Stevenson's, and Gore Electric. For the upgrade project, as you know, we did have bids come in. We are awaiting the paperwork that needs to be submitted to Lamont from Miller Contracting. And once that's submitted, the contract can be signed and a start date can be given. We'd hope to do that today, but some things have been delayed. So things in the future that will be done, Ed and Lenny will be pulling the pump station 5 to fix the O-ring. They're going to pressure wash pump station 1 and get the outside plant online if needed. Any questions, comments? There was a question that someone had posed to me as far as the occasional odors that come near the end of summer from the plant. And I've been told that the upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant should take care of a lot of that. And they'll keep a good eye on that during the summer. Okay, Crystal O'Brien, Clerk Treasurer's report.
All right, so first off, I would like to rehire Henry Baudelinette for lifeguarding this year at the beach. They both were able to get recertified, which was great. That was a little unsure for a while. We did budget to hire them at $12.76 per hour. for 5 days a week with a little bit of an additional for example, for June 5th, when we'll be open. The beach will be open. Hopefully, we're hoping to open June 25th, last weekend of June. And I'm guessing probably to about the third week of August, which is normally when they have to go back to school. New hours Wednesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And closed Monday and Tuesday except for July 5th. So if the board.
Yep, so, looking for a motion to rehire Della Knapp and Henry Bobette as beach lifeguards, under the terms and conditions expressed. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Rebecca? Okay, and, Mark, second? Okay, any questions or comments? No? Okay? Yeah, so the beach would be open Wednesday to Sunday, and it would be closed on Mondays and Tuesdays except for the July 4th weekend. So all in favor of rehiring Della Knapp and Henry Bobette, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Employee training for workplace violence, sexual harassment, and the bloodborne pathogen is scheduled for June 23rd, as I hope all of you got the email, at 10:15 a.m. It'll probably be about an hour and a half with the bloodborne pathogen. The only employees that are required to do the bloodborne pathogens is DPW, water, sewer, and the lifeguards.
So
Everybody else is required to do the workplace violence and sexual harassment, and it's heavily encouraged or highly encouraged for the board
For the
members to
board.
do that as well.
to be here.
Yes, there is an option to do it online. We haven't.
Through NYMER.
Right, through our insurance.
So if you're unable to attend on the 23rd, at what time will be the bloodborne pathogens? At 10:15 or is that earlier? You'll let them know?
Yeah, I'll let them
Okay.
know. Kevin didn't specify which one.
Okay. So we'll let you know what time on Wednesday. That'll be Wednesday the 23rd, right? Wednesday the 23rd. Okay. And if you can't make it, then we'll make arrangements for you to do it online.
We'll also be setting one up for the fire department since they have to do that as well.
And they'll do that in person? Okay, so that's another option if you want to attend with the firemen on a
We
Monday,
usually do
Tuesday.
that, yeah, we usually do that with one of their meetings.
Yeah.
So, usually in July, or well, the last couple of years in July.
Fine? Good.
KC Camp Store submitted a vendor permit for the music on the point. He would be there every Wednesday during the music, which is 6:30 to 8:30. He did have a couple of questions. One I was able to answer on my own. The second one, he had asked, last year he paid the full $50 permit fee for the daily
Daily use.
permit fee, sorry, for the music on the point. He was wondering if he only used it for the 6:30 to 8:30. That's the only time he was vending for. If the price is to remain the same, the $50 per day, if he could have additional hours extended, so from like 11:30 to 9 instead of just the 6:30, the 2 hours.
And remain located. So we do have a vending law in place. We have a daily rate that is stated, which is $50, whether you do it for 2 hours or whether you do it the entire day. So anyone have any thoughts? So what he's done in the past is he has set up off the road by the guardrail, where you enter the point of the park. So I don't have any issues with that. Of doing that.
I don't think that, I know there's not this agreement, specifically about 4th of July, maybe when you use the phone strings to fill in there, or in this case, you said, use it on the point or something. It has to do with rules and conditions that you sign.
And I'm sorry, what does this,
Number 3, on the agreement.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the use the village as a This is just from our vendor,
this is not the copy that he used for when he was vending during 4th of July?
No, I sent him the form for,
Okay.
like, the vendor lot,
Okay,
so we must have
Yeah.
forgotten to take that out.
okay, so we need to update
That,
number 3 in the agreement and have
Yep.
a line to qualify that for music on the point.
yep,
Okay.
well,
Okay. Okay. So, all in agreement, say aye. All opposed? All right.
and then lastly, there were just a few other, adjustments that need to be made for the end of the year, for closing.
May I just go back? I'm sorry. I received an email from Casey this evening at 6:30. As we mentioned, paying food and all costs associated with the hot dog cart at the pavilion. So this is not a vending situation. He would have a small sign up that would say for memorial guests only, closed to the public. So he just wanted to make sure that that was okay, and I don't see any issues with that, and there's no permit because it's not a vending opportunity. So if we can let Casey know that that's okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Like I was saying, there's just a couple of additional adjustments from our accounts that we need to adjust from our previous resolution number 10 to do the final end of the year adjustments for closing. The sewer personnel codes still needed a little bit of adjusting. 116, it was still $116 negative. That was covered by the overtime code. The sewer Social Security was $80 still over. That was covered by within the retirement code same area of account codes. And then the water personnel code was still $1,000 over. That was as well covered by their overtime code.
About that. So there are some deficits in one account, overflow in another, so that they've
But it's
been
all within the
evened
same
out.
department.
Right,
Yeah,
so
and-
water stayed within water, sewer stayed within sewer.
Basically, they're like adjoining codes.
Right. So overtime,
Covered personnel.
Personnel, regular straight time.
overtime Covered personnel.
right, and
Employee benefit, one employee benefit covered the other.
employee benefit. And of course, as I asked
Here it is,
today, there was enough money to cover the costs, and this was surplus that we
Right,
could
right.
redistribute.
Yes.
So, for the record, $116.77 would be moved from sewage treatment and disposal personnel overtime to sewer treatment and disposal personnel time. We moved $80.11, very close, from G90 10.8, which is retirement, to Social Security, and that's in sewer treatment and disposal. And then for water, right?
Yeah.
Move $1,411.91 from personnel services overtime to regular personnel services. Okay. So all in favor, I'd like a motion to accept resolution for final administrative end-of-year adjustments for the 2021 budget. I have a motion to accept that. Doniker, second. Cindy, Rumsey, any questions, comments? Nope. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? None. Motion carries. Do you have anything else, Crystal?
No, abstract number 1. Oh,
it
actually,
is
financial
abstract.
report number 12 is ready for review.
Okay, so financial report number 12, that'll be the last one of the month.
That'll be May, and then,
That'll be the end of May. So that's May's, and we'll sign off on that at the next board meeting. And so here I would like a motion to approve abstract number 1 for payment. Rebecca, second? Okay, Cindy seconds. Any comments or questions on any of the abstract bills? It was a big one just because it's the beginning of the year. We have the lease payment on the fire truck, et cetera, some insurance payments, et cetera. Okay, so all in favor of approving abstract 1 for payment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries and we can pay the bills. Okay, let me get a little organized here. All right, so just going through some old business, not a lot to update with the COVID-19. The emergency order has been extended. It's for an undetermined amount of time until we believe the pandemic is declared over in New York State. So we're on for another month, which allows us to use Zoom, at least a month. Some good news in the FEMA emergency Halloween storm update. We have received a payout for Tunney Park damages that were in the amount of $19,003.57. We received payments from FEMA in the amount of 75%, which is $14,252.68. And we are awaiting the state portion that is coming, and that is $2,375. So we are still waiting on the water crossing that is still under review, and they're looking for historic and archaeological significance of disturbing the area for the water main. And the other is the pump station down by the inn. So that's been tilted, and we're trying to get that straightened out. FEMA COVID update, there's still a lot to get in the proper format. It's quite the challenge to do something that they will accept, and with all the changes throughout the time, make sure that we have the right bills on the right forms for them for payment. Verizon small cell, I've been told a couple months ago that those antennas, which is the only thing waiting on the antenna at SVAC and down at the pavilion, those would be mounted by July weekend. I received a note 2 weeks ago from Verizon saying that had been postponed because of supply issues and that they may not be able to get that until the fall. So I called them up and said that was totally unacceptable, because if you can imagine, it has been 2 years since we have brought it to their attention, begging, asking, pleading. So Colin Fazio had said that he was going to make some calls to see if they could do it. I mean, it's only 2 little antennas, so hopefully that will go through. The next is the fire tower. So I believe Trustee Doniper had mentioned last meeting that the fire tower application to the APA was submitted. Comments have come back. We're working through those responses, and hopefully we should be submitting it within the next couple weeks. So, oh, you did. Oh, all right. Okay. So I'm sorry, for the record, that's Bob Benkovich. Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Terrific. Right. Correct. Terrific. Correct. Terrific. Thank you. And he is a PE that works with Essex County, a licensed engineer. So. Okay, so that's moving along. LED street lights. They should have been, the start of the installment should have started at least by now. In speaking with my good friend Joe Pallone at National Grid, he said that there were some delays again because of high wind and trees down, that they had to divert some of the crews to do that. And he was supposed to call me back today, but did not. But hopefully we will have new lights in the village and start saving some money on that. We are going to talk about septic erosion regulations under new business, or continuing business actually. And the Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, we will start planning out the timeline for that because we can't do anything until December with the timings. What we do need to do though, with respect to the Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, is we have to revisit our employee handbook about what we're doing with positive tests for THC, which comes with CBD oils and things like that, how we handle that for people who do not have the commercial licenses. So I'll happily tag someone to come up with some proposals for that. Okay, so new business is the volunteer fire department knows to be one is Nate Towers, so I'll pass that along. Yes. Yes, we're going to talk about that under the new business. So that those are the laws that were, the regulations that were amended, and the addendum that was passed out for review. So Mark's gonna cover that. So Nate Towers is one, and I believe that he's also going to function as the chaplain. Is that right? So Nate is the pastor of North Country Bible Fellowship. So that is going through, and then there is Oscar Avila and John Sheldon. And are these? Oh, thank you.
They're approved by us, and I'm not testing them.
Okay.
So they don't like that fire.
Say what?
So on the
I'm saying that's probably because it happens.
Yes, I think that's really
really check. I don't have a heart condition check, I hope.
right.
Yeah.
Just letting you know that.
We may need to have him confirm that. By the time he's,
He's fine.
It's fine, I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
he is healthy. Yes, he is healthy. And Chief O'Brien has also provided us with a list of the current active firefighters. So there are 18 at present, and this would bring it up to 21.
Team members that we give money to, that they've been inactive for so many months.
Okay.
It's time to,
Terrific.
yes.
Okay, and by next meeting, we should have the LoSAP proposal worked out for the transition from the direct benefit to defined contribution, defined benefit to defined contribution. So, yes, so we're working, we had to go back to the FIS, there was some misinformation that has now been corrected, and we'll sit down with Ryan Marshall, who's overseeing that for the fire department, and Matt, if you'd like to join us as well, make sure that everything is equitably distributed. My one question for these three, there are internal firefighters and external firefighters. You have sufficient numbers for internal and external? I'm assuming these are all external for
These are
now?
all the external, exterior firefighters.
Exterior, sorry.
I'm pretty sure all three of them are eventually gonna go through and become interior guys, so.
Oh, terrific. So how many do you have at present who are interior? So you have certain guys who run the trucks and the pump trucks.
6 interiors.
So, okay, good. So 6 out of 18. No, a certain percentage, so as you look on the list, there's a certain percentage that are within the village. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So over 50% are in the village. And then with these 3 additions, it'll still be more than 50% are in the village.
And you see we lost 3 members.
Oh, yes, so we've lost Michael Marshall, Mark Hughes, and Wayne Lucas. Anybody have any other comments about these current people? And I'm sorry, Mark, that you don't see them.
Well, I trust Matt's judgment on if he
Yeah.
accepts them. I accept them.
Well, I won't make a comment. All right. So, okay, so all in favor of approving Nathaniel J. Towers, Oscar Avila, and John Sheldon into the Speculator Volunteer Fire Department membership, say aye.
Aye.
Nope, okay, motion carries. I don't think I asked for a motion. All right, let me, okay, may I have a motion to accept into membership at the Speculator Volunteer Fire Department, Nate Towers, Oscar Avila, John Sheldon. Thank you, Rumsey, and thank you, Mark Doniker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Welcome. All right, thank you. I'm a little out of practice. I missed the last, this last meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
And all who have a year, so we've been able to get them with year.
Good.
Nobody has too many book yet, so.
Terrific. Get extra socks.
Last week, we went, like Tracy and I, we took the ladder truck over to Seagull. We wanted to use them with us for the Ironwood
Okay.
Lodge and ladder truck. So we got over there, so they're gonna do it all mutual aid with us, through this rather than on the line eventually, so.
Oh, so we don't have mutual aid with them at the present time? Okay. Okay.
Well,
Yes.
the next FAB meeting, which is next month. We're going over everyone's on mutual aid agreements,
Okay, good.
revamping them, looking over and getting them to the jail and to the proper authorities, just so there's up-to-date ones. And our plan is every year, the first month of every year, we'll go through everyone again, get them all signed.
And you're on our fiscal year? Or are you talking about the first of the January 1st? Okay. Okay. Okay, of the regular calendar. And has the mutual toning out of Lake Pleasant and Speculator been working? Okay, good. So you've had sufficient coverage?
Yes, we do it both ways, we've had calls on both ways, and it's worked out great.
Okay, wonderful. Good, all right. Thank you, and thank you to the folks down there. Okay, under new business, it's something that we had talked about previously, and it's now coming to be our board committee meetings. So each board member has been assigned to a committee, and we're trying to meet on a semi-regular basis just to make sure that the committee can meet with the appropriate supervisor, get things, to be able to discuss some things that may not be coming up on the board meeting, different concerns that would need to be addressed, just to see how it works. So we'll do it this month and then see whether it should continue on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis.
I think I scheduled them out for the next 3 months.
Next 3 months.
And then we'll
see.
decide
Okay.
which day is it this month? Is it this?
So each one is different. So we have a financial meeting this Wednesday, financial committee meeting.
Yeah, this month was a little funky because it's not on the same schedule as I originally sent out. What was it?
He was asking me about rec. I said, I know they put me on
I'll double check. We can check afterwards. That's fine.
That's tomorrow.
No, Wednesday. We'll double check. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that we were on board doing that. And then, Mark, if you would do the septic system erosion regulation.
Sure, Mayor. I did send out the local law 1, which is a duplicate of Hamilton County law of 1976. I actually requested that be held back until we could go through the entire law together with the new trustees. One of the trustees sent me some questions, and instead of answering all those questions, I'd like to have a workshop proposed for next week. So the trustees could clearly understand the law, local law 1, and the addendum that we're requiring to hopefully to pass. And it's already gone through Hamilton County Soil and Water, LPSA directors, professional engineer who specialize in septic tanks, wastewater. And I had the opportunity to do water sampling with a retired college professor from Union County, Union College, this weekend, and one of their other scientists from LPSA who gave me some more information. So I think it's important that everyone understands the law and the addendum, and I'd like to make sure all the questions are answered so we can make sure that the vote is accurate and best supports the village.
Yep, I would agree to that. I think to take time up during the board meeting itself to go through line by line is somewhat arduous in the evening. But again, once those comments from the board are incorporated, we will make a motion during the regular business meeting, and then the public will have an opportunity to review that before we go through the adoption as law. So Crystal, just remind me, we would need 5 days in advance to post a workshop, correct? Okay, so looking for a time the week of the 21st of June, if you have your calendars.
I'm open all week.
Okay, there is workplace violence training, not how to do it, but how to prevent it, on the 23rd.
There's a planning board meeting on the 22nd.
And a planning board.
Is it for you?
We can do it any time that works. Okay, so are people available the 22nd in the evening? Oh, that's the planning board, sorry. The 21st,
Anytime during the day.
next Monday. Are you available in the evening? Cindy can't do it during the day.
Sure.
Or Wednesday evening?
Wednesdays are bad for me.
Yeah, Wednesdays are bad. Thursday, the 24th, in the evening? Yeah, he can't do Monday.
Well, and you need
Thursday.
5 business days, don't you?
Yeah, that would, the 24th would still be more than 5 business days.
21st would, 21st.
Ah, well, okay. Is that in the evening?
Oh, yeah, that's
We
right.
can move it
Oh my
on.
God, I can't believe I forgot
Can we do it late afternoon? Or-
Yeah, we can do it. Are you available late afternoon, Jim? You can do that, late afternoon? Rebecca, are you good late afternoon?
Late afternoon, like,
What time is,
well, Seamus's graduation at 6 o'clock.
Wait,
3?
hold on. No, it works.
Yeah, it gets worse after that, yeah.
Alright, so either 3 o'clock, I guess.
We could,
So Thursday is no good? Thursday late afternoon, the 24th is no good?
graduation.
Oh, Thursday is,
But Thursday, earlier afternoon. would be
Okay.
how early can we do it? Can we do it at 2 o'clock? Are you good with 2 o'clock?
Yes, I think you want to.
2 o'clock Thursday, the 24th. Mr. Doniker, good?
Here?
Great for me.
Yes, we will do it here, and that public announcement will be noted for any members of the public who would like to sit and observe.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. I gotta write that down. 24th. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on that, or move along on that. Next is, there are a series of resolutions looking at the establishment of a capital reserve and emergency expenditure fund. Mark, do you want to take us through that, or should I walk us through?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. If you could,
There, oh, there are 3 different funds.
Right, 3 different funds, it's the same thing, but we have to make one for each fund that we're doing.
Right. So what we're looking to do, we'll start with the Public Works one. The first resolution is to establish a capital reserve fund to finance major capital projects and emergency expenditures for the Department of Public Works, introduced by Mark Doniker. So in this, it's to take those funds and put it aside so that we can save for new capital projects, or if there's an emergency, we would have a fund available that we would be able to draw from. So we would do an estimated maximum annual contribution to the fund that would be no greater than 5% of the annual revenues to the Department of Public Works, but the Department of Public Works doesn't have a revenue.
So Department of Public Works, that would be 5% of what we.
The budget.
The 5% of the general budget.
Okay, so the estimated annual contribution to the fund shall be no greater than 5% of the annual budget of the Department of Public Works. So the funds would be used for,
Well, budget revenues, because,
okay,
well, I guess it depends on how you.
what do you mean? It is
Do you
revenues
want
from
it
tax
on his-
revenue.
Yeah, do you want it for his budget? Because you have to specify whether it's his,
Yeah, it's the budget for the Department of Public Works.
by his expenditures budget or his revenue, because his revenues are only like.
What is allotted for the budget?
refuse.
That's why I said it's the
Specifically.
budget. It should be of his budget.
Or you can say revenues of the general fund. Because the DPW is the majority of the general fund is DPW.
Of the annual general fund revenue, annual revenues of the general fund. Are there tissues available? In the ladies' room, yeah. Okay, so the estimated maximum annual contribution to the fund shall be no greater than 5% of the annual revenue to the general fund. So the capital projects that would be covered by this capital fund would be any new capital assets, any rehabilitation or replacement of infrastructure or capital assets, any engineering costs associated with the above, and accrual for future rehabilitation and replacement needs. So like, for example, if the roof collapsed on the DPW building, we'd be able to take funds from this and do that. And if there's an emergency because of it, we would be able to take it out of this fund as a primary stopping place. And then it can also be used in the event of emergencies that include economic events, such as the one that we have just come through, that would negatively impact revenues or expenses. And those would be included but not limited to use for operating expenses, payment of debt service coverage requirements, and or to reduce or eliminate interest and debt issuance costs. So the fund could not be accessed without approval of the village board, and as required under general municipal law. It would establish a capital reserve based on guidelines set forth by the Office of the State Comptroller, the Division of Local Government Management Guide on Reserve Funds, and the Village's Speculator Policy for the establishment of reserve funds. So the money within the Capital Reserve Fund will consist only of Department of Works revenue funds. The establishment of the reserve fund is also subject to the consent of the superintendent, the mayor, and the board of trustees. So we all have to agree how those monies would be spent. Does anyone have any comments or questions? So each year we would have an accounting of the reserve funds, how much is in it, how it's being spent, if there are projects that we're targeting it through. So it's not just going to be put aside and forgotten about, right? So we need to be fiscally responsible for that.
Well, and nothing could come out of the reserve fund without a resolution to do so.
Correct.
So,
And with the agreement of the mayor, the board, and the superintendent. Because it's not good advice just to have budget floating
Right, so
around.
It doesn't carry over, it only goes to 5%.
No, it does carry over.
Carries over.
So each
but-
year, you can add up to 5%.
Okay, all right,
Right.
okay.
so
So,
instead of having an exuberant amount of fund balance left
Yeah.
over that we're
Oh,
not
I
using,
see what you're saying. We're
you
putting
put them
it-
in different funds so
Right.
that down the road, if something specific, like the truck reserve funds or these capital project funds, then you can take out, you have
Yes.
those monies set aside, take out of them and use it specifically
Right.
for those.
and so at the end of every year, when we do have fund balances, then we look at that and decide, okay, do we need to keep it in unallocated fund balance and leave it fluid? Is this something that we need to plan for in the future as we're looking at a 5-year plan for the village? Or, is it something that we put somewhere else? Because we do have equipment fund reserve. So those are specific for equipment. These are those capital projects. Let's say we wanted to put up a new pavilion, or we wanted to put in a new ball field, or we wanted to do something down the point, right? Those would all be capital.
And then the 5% is so that they don't, so that down the road, somebody doesn't just go, oh, we're gonna take all of this year's rollover and push.
Right.
Cause that would just, that would.
Correct. Yeah,
Have any really long.
What have they done in the past with emergency expenditures?
there has not been a fund.
It's just come out of regular fund balance, so like.
So our fund balances have been quite high in the past. And the Office of the State Comptroller says you should really have a fund balance of operating costs that cover approximately 2 months. And so ours have been in excess of that. So what they want to see is, if your fund balances are so large, are you overtaxing people? Is your budgeting so poor that you have all these monies left over? How are you going to rejig that? So that it's appropriate. So villages are not in the business of making money. They're taking funds based on taxes, and they're applying them to programs, capital projects, and equipment to keep the village going. And you want to keep those as even as possible, right? So you're not having huge balances. And so one way to address that is to plan ahead and to keep those plans and allocate those funds within specific reserves to address those anticipated needs and to address those anticipated emergencies. So that's what we're setting up now.
What about the excess that they have now?
That's what we're getting better at distributing. So do you have a copy of the fund balances at the present time, or we can go through that at the next?
I wasn't planning to go through it right
Okay.
now. I have it on the computer, but.
Yeah. So we'll go through the fund balances at our next business meeting to show where all these things are in place. So right now, we are just setting up the reserve fund and not putting anything in it. So we're just setting up the parameters for it,
Right.
right? And then next board meeting, we'll go through what are the unallocated balances and what should we be putting into these different funds.
So the funds that are there now, hopefully will go to.
No.
Correct.
In order to put money into a reserve or take it out, it has to be done by a resolution specifically.
Yep, okay. So may I have a motion to approve the resolution to establish a capital reserve fund to finance major capital projects and emergency expenditures for the Department of Public Works? Okay, and Cindy and Rebecca, sorry, Mark, any additional questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. So similarly, we are, let's see. Okay, similarly, can't say that word today, we are looking at the resolution for a balance for water capital projects. So again, water pays for water, sewer pays for sewer, general fund stays with general fund. So for the water, this resolution is to establish a capital reserve fund to finance major capital projects and emergency expenditures for the water department. So this is again looking for water, and the estimated maximum annual contribution to the fund shall be no greater than 5% of the annual revenues to the water department. And so again, similar to the public works, it would be for a new capital assets, rehab and replacement of infrastructure or capital assets, engineering costs, accrual for future rehab and replacement, and emergencies that would allow us to pay for operating expenses, payment of debt service coverage requirements, or reduce or eliminate interest and debt issuance costs. Again, it's the same parameters, the same municipal law, the same guidance by the OSC. Again, nothing can be added to the fund without a resolution. Nothing can be taken out without a resolution. And when we take out to fund a project, that has to have the agreement not only of the mayor and the board, but also Ed Sharpo was the chief water operator. Okay. So may I have a motion for the resolution to establish a capital reserve fund to finance major capital projects and emergency expenditures for the water department? Jim Rumsey first, and Rebecca second. Any questions, any further questions or comments? No? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, and third time's a charm for resolution for the wastewater capital reserve fund to finance major capital projects and emergency expenditures for the wastewater department. So again, this would be 5%, no greater than 5% of the annual revenues of the wastewater department. And again, same expenditures for both capital, rehab, and emergencies. So may I have a motion to accept this resolution? Cindy, and second by Jim, trustee Jim Rumsey. Any comments or questions on this one? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries for the passage of this resolution. Okay, moving right along. NYMER. So every few years we get a risk assessment visit from NYMER, and this was the year, the last one occurred in 2018. A formal report is forthcoming. There were 2 or 3 top line items that we sat down and we discussed a little bit. The first is that anyone who uses a backhoe needs to be certified by Dig New York. So we are waiting that information. So anyone within DPW, anyone within wastewater that digs has to be certified. That can all be done online. And I understand that's just a few hours that would do. So that's one thing to come in line with laws of the state that were changed within the last 2 years, I believe. The second thing that came that had been suggested back in 2018, but nothing was done, and it's something for us to consider. And I would certainly like Parks and Recs Department to sit with Roger and come up with some ideas. He had pointed out that children at play, the signs that we have, children at play, in his opinion, there's an inordinate amount of children at play signs. And the reason why he says that is that children at play signs carry a liability to the village, in that people assume that traffic is somehow controlled, monitored, directed by the village for children at play. So he has suggested that Roger do a complete sign inventory, and then we determine which ones should be removed and perhaps replaced with "We love our children," something that doesn't connotate a liability. Yeah, so that little project will feed into perhaps the grant proposal. If not, here's an opportunity that we can have a contest within the village, and Lake Pleasant can do it as well, that we can have submissions of what a sign would look like. So there are some villages or towns that have we and then a heart children, we love our children, or, something like that. Children at play, children goofing off or something. So just to throw it out there for the Parks and Rec to have some ideas on what that looks like, what we could possibly do to address that. So Roger's in the process of getting that inventory,
So children at play is linked with liability.
evidently, yes.
We can say other things,
Like-
such as we love our children.
Correct.
I mean, are we at risk down the line if they're gonna say, hey, that's not we love our children?
Supposedly not. Supposedly not. And I'm telling you, this fellow thinks of every aspect of liability that makes my head hurt. So, yes. So the third thing that he mentioned amongst other things is that we need to increase the amount of sand and wood chips under the playgrounds to keep that in an acceptable level. And I found out that there are certain materials that are graded for how high the playground equipment is. So if you have wood chips, you can, quote unquote, safely fall from a height of 9 feet. But if you have sand, you can only safely fall from like 4 or 5 feet. So we have sand by the swing sets, and we should have more wood chips by the playground area, where you have the jungle gym. That make sense? I believe so. He's going to put that in his more formal report, but something for us to speak with Roger about and make sure that those things are in order, and just see what we need to do in that regard. And the last thing, I'm forgetting the last one. Well, the formal report is coming. I just wanted to throw those bigger things out. Okay. And when that report comes, that'll be distributed. So the thing that I would like to speak with you today is a potential grant proposal. In the original agenda, we thought that we could go through one grant system, and it turns out that we cannot. So the grant that we are looking at is with the New York State Department of State Local Waterfront Revitalization Program Opportunity. So I forwarded you a letter from Allison Gaddy from the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board. And she put together a few proposals, some recommendations that we could possibly address through this grant. So part of this grant requires that we have a revitalization plan, which was in 2013, and it was funded through the same stream of money. And so we can submit an application based on that planning grant, that revitalization, and looking at one of the recommendations within that plan that we can work from. So the first is the advanced streetscape and public facility improvement. So in the southern corridor, so this is around the pavilion area, proposed improvements to this area are intended to improve connectivity to existing community facilities, provide visual continuity that will enhance user experiences, and offer a centralized location that can be used for a wide variety of events of activities. So one sample project that would fit that would be only the parking lot. So as part of this grant, the village would have to come up with 25% local match. So again, this would be a capital, I believe it would be a capital improvement, not the parking lot though. Is a parking lot a capital improvement? We'd have to check, okay. Okay, so one is the parking lot. It would cost approximately $100,000 to fix the parking lot properly down at the pavilion and make it acceptably green so that we can fix the problems, as you see, with the big puddles and put things in that would save erosion. That's a huge project. And we have the added difficulty of being in the Adirondack with very high wide swings of temperature. So there are certain things that we cannot do up here because it would crack and break and freeze. And but that's one thing that we can explore is the parking lot. The second proposal is streetscape enhancements only, and that would be looking to add benches, bear cans, some additional trees or plantings, and the picnic tables. So Allison has put together a loose proposal that would amount to about $60,000. We would pay $6,000 in administration fees to the Lake George Plan Board, and the $6,500 cost of $82,000. And then park again based on the revitalization plan, an information kiosk, accessible picnic tables, up to 6 additional ones, Adirondack benches, bear-proof cans, so that'd be 5 bear-proof cans, and that would, Adirondack benches I'm thinking would probably be 5 or 6. That would replace some of our existing wooden ones. There would be the administration fee, the 25% match, for a total project cost of $40,625. So, although we have some in the village, this would coordinate them all. As well as an information kiosk that we could probably tie in with the new fire tower. So the signs would approximately cost about $35,000. In there, we could include the children's sign, have a competition from that these government grants tend to like when you involve local artists and local people to do that. Total project cost would come to about $51,250. We need to decide by next business meeting where we're going with this, because the applications are due on July 30th, and there's a lot of stuff that we have to do to get that in place. So I want to throw that out there for any ideas. If anyone needs a copy of the revitalization plan, let me know, and we can distribute that. So in case there's something additional, or if you have questions. Rebecca, you have a look on your face. Yes. Yes, sorry. We are using it for the fire tower. So far, very good, I think. So they so every month or every quarter, they have to give accounting, they have to calculate percentages, they collect the receipts that we provide them and make sure that we're meeting all the requirements of. So if you were to hire someone to write a grant, it would cost several $1,000s to do that. And they've written a number of them up for us already. And the fire tower grant is the first one that has paid out.
So are you saying that 12,000 for the first item and 666 for the second? Administrative costs in 1 year or in 2 years, it's $30,000?
No, $12,000. So these are 4 projects of which we would pick one. Right. So the parking lot project would take place over a 2-year period of time. So that's a $12,000 administration fee. Otherwise, it's $6,000 per year. The other ones can be done in a year. Our budget, donations, and in-kind service. So anything regarding like the trees, the second one, the streetscape enhancements, if we worked in trees and flower barrels and things like that, we have an army of, well, small army of really incredible gardeners who help with the park and, you know, put those things together and do those plantings. So that would be in kind. So it's not just money, but it's in kind services, like what we can do to do that. Correct. Correct. So that would go towards our paying the 25% local match. Correct. So there's some things to think about. Look around, see what strikes your fancy. I myself am leaning towards the benches, bear cans, trees, and picnic tables. That's just my thought.
Can you clarify about the accessible business
Yes, that's just thrown out for an example. No, 6,005. Yeah, those are the picnic tables that we have out. Mark, do you remember how much the handicap picnic table is in the park that we purchased?
Around $900.
$900 a table. So they're stainless steel. They're made with the indestructible
Plastic wood.
resin, plastic wood, and they don't need to be brought in and they don't need to be brought out. So that cuts on our savings for storage, saves our guys from picking them up, putting them out, and they're accessible year round. Bear cans cost about $800 a piece, and those are the ones that have the bolts and the cables. Those aren't the ones that are steel or, you know, other types. So that would help improve the bears making withdrawals in the morning hours and strewing it across our lovely streets.
Yeah, Mayor, the steel ones
Yeah.
are about $700-800, and the plastic ones are about $300 plus shipping. Because we just got a quote, but you really want the metal ones at certain locations.
It's a little harder for them to walk off with. Although I believe Roger said that there was one plastic one that he thought someone had stolen or walked off with, and he had gone behind Lemon Tree. The bear hadn't gotten into it, which was great, but yeah. So Roger went on a little expedition trying to find, went on a bear hunt.
Yeah, the metal ones have a concrete pad and they're bolted to the concrete, and so they can't be moved at all.
Right, so we can leave those year round. Okay, so those are just some things to think about and come back and make a decision on. Okay.
For the new,
Yeah.
how does it fund the 25% to the match? Besides keeping voting
So we can do it through budgeting. So as we come up to the next year, we can set monies in the budget to match that. We can look at any surplus that we might have during the current budget to fund that, or we can look at unallocated fund balance, which we hope not to have much of. And the other aspect that we can do, depending on how much is in our capital reserves, that depending on what the grant would be, that might be another alternative for funding source. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll come back to that. Okay, so board roundtable. What I did want to raise today, because things are starting to move. If you recall in the news a while back, there was the American Rescue Plan Act, that $1.9 trillion package that was based on President Biden's American Rescue Plan that was intended to combat COVID, the pandemic, including public health and economic impact. So there is a specific piece that is targeted to the government called Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, which includes approximately $350 billion going to state, local, and tribal governments. So states, counties, metropolitan municipalities, anyone with over 50,000 population are considered entitlement units. That's not us. They receive direct funding from the Treasury. Funding for non-metropolitan municipalities, or quote, non-entitlement units, that would be us, are passed through the state. So New York State has been slated to receive a little over $7.7 billion for the non-entitlement units, of which we are a part of it. So the state allocates these NEUs using a specific formula. So the allotment is capped at 75% of your total operating budget in effect as of January 27th, 2020. So we could, in theory, get up to 75% of our budget. Don't worry, we won't go that high. So the Office of the State Comptroller is in the process of working on the application development for the NEUs, but has not announced anything yet. But what I want us to start thinking about and have Ed start thinking about is that there are a number of allowable uses within the plan that we can use that are pertinent to Speculator. So we can look at the loss of revenue and making necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So the investment in these cases does not have to be tied to the pandemic, but we do have to be prepared with how we're going to execute a project, because the project would have to be completed by the year 2024, right? So there are a few things that we've talked to Ed about. So we have talked about closing off the loop system for the water that we keep hoping and hoping and hoping, but we don't have enough people in the village to be able to do that closure of the water looping, so that could be a potential. There's the replacement of the pipes that are really needed in, is it the Wolf Complex? The Wolf Complex just south of Bear Run. There are also I&I issues that we have with our water and wastewater, so that our pipes are cracked and things like that. So when we have a rush of groundwater, it goes through our wastewater treatment plant and can cause all sorts of havoc. So this could also be an opportunity to look at that, to see if there are things that we can do to mitigate that situation. And so there's no minimal amount for us. We just need to be able to come up with a project and be ready to apply for that when it comes. So from Crystal and Tracy's point of view, the information that we have to provide to apply includes basically all the information we put forth for grant. And since we've done that twice so far, I think we'll be good for the third time around with all that information. But the planning for those projects needs to be pretty tight, because from what I understand, the money comes in 2 tranches to New York State. The first tranche has been received, and they need to be able to tell us what's going on by the end of June, so they get 30 days to do that. And then next year at this time, the second tranche would come in for those funds. So I think it really behooves us to get on the ball and make sure we can do that. I did provide you with a PowerPoint presentation. It's called the Wallace presentation. Michael Wallace is not the newscaster, but he's from the National League of Cities. And so if you go through that PowerPoint presentation I sent you on page 7, it has allowable uses for the response to public health, any negative impacts to households, businesses, response to workers performing essential work, and any lost revenue, so the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue. So for us, that in particular was for the water and sewer. We were down about 25% in revenues there. And the baseline levels where they determine below revenue is anything prior to the emergency. So we have documentation of how our revenues fell for water and sewer, particularly with our businesses, and then again, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. And the investment does not need to be tied to the pandemic. And if we have infrastructure in one of these three buckets that need upgrades, now is the time to take advantage of this. Otherwise, it is prohibitively expensive. We do not qualify for other grants given our median income based on our primary and secondary homeowners. So it's extremely difficult. And we've been able to get USDA grants for some of it. And those costs of interest rates on the USDA grants is gradually creeping up again. And we already have some USDA bonds that are really high. So anytime we can take advantage of something like this, we should really try and do that. The next thing is pavilion parking lot. As you see, a couple weeks ago, the puddle was closest to the playground. After regrading, they went in and did it again. Now the puddle is closer to the road. Roger's been talking with a number of people on what we can do for that. So he's going to come with a proposal next week. In speaking with Randy Lavarnway and a few people in town, they're talking about running some perforated pipe, like a French drain, that would run through the parking lot, that would be encased in rock. There's no sand over the top of it that would get it clogged, and that it would drain, absorb the water, and take it to the river where it belongs. So I just wanted to let you know about that. The next thing is that this is duck itch season. A lot of little kids in particular who like to play in the shallow water and flop around are getting duck itch, some really pretty horrible. Yep, and in speaking with Trustee Doniker, they should be done by the end of June, beginning of July. So you have your black fly, you have your duck itch, you have your mosquitoes. So they have been treated in the past privately, I believe. There's some question on who was doing it, how it was doing it, but the rules have changed with DEC now. You have to be certified and approved. So Betsy Bain and I and Erica Mahoney and I had an exchange of emails. So Betsy, since most of Lake Pleasant is in Lake Pleasant, she's going to follow up with Soil and Water, as well as another DOH area that's responsible for that sort of stuff, to see if something can be done. But in the meantime, to advise our public and visitors that when you go bathing, towel dry off immediately. If possible, wash and scrub to get the water off, because it's the bacteria or the parasites that actually are in the water that's on your skin, and when they dry, they burrow into your skin, causing these pretty horrific rashes. So if we can do that, and it was also suggested by Department of Health if we put up a notice like at the bathhouse or something. So I don't know what. Yeah, definitely don't feed the ducks. Keep them away. Okay, and the very last thing I have is that I distributed finally an updated version to the NICOM handbook for elected village officials. So that has not been updated since I think before 2018. So that has been, that's available. If any of you did not get it, let me know. Anybody else for roundtable? Of course. Oh, for the plan, the American Rescue Plan? Yes. So two of those things, well, the first thing is the water looping, completing the water looping system. And the second is the wolf complex, at least fund that in part. In order to do everything, it would be pretty costly. So I have asked him to come up with a list of things that would include that, as well as the INI, the groundwater. A groundwater study to prevent all that groundwater washing through and being processed through our wastewater treatment plant. And if there are any things that were not covered by the wastewater treatment plant upgrade that may be required. So like right now we test for copper because we've been asked to do that. because the amount of copper pipes, we haven't had any issue this past year. So now it becomes a question of whether the Department of Health will require that. So, you know, what do we do to adjust for that, or what do we do to plan for those added expenses? Are there other things we can do to adjust? There's about 10, 15 in the Wolf Complex.
Multiple, like the families.
No, just the units. Yeah, I think the units, there are about 10 to 12 units there. Where it becomes a cost to the village is that when they break, and they break fairly often, that costs the entire village. I think in terms of priority though, it's the looping of the system that would be of most benefit to the entire village to do that. And the INI. Any other comments, questions? Thoughts? No? Okay. So we'll close the board roundtable and open it up one last time for public comment. Any public comment? And who are you? Hello, Shorty? Yes. Very good. Thank you very much. He's happily married. No, I would invite you to that one, Shorty. I received something this afternoon that we have to look into. I have to read it, so I'm not exactly sure all the details of what it said. Mm-hmm. Yep. All things to consider. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? The Letty motion. No one wants to adjourn? Mark?
I'll adjourn.
Okay.
Sure, I'll second.
All right. So meeting is adjourned at 8:23. Thank you very much. And good night.